Hey, welcome back, podcast friends. And in this episode, I've got my wife with me. And because again, this is going to be talking about controlling your thoughts. But before I start, I just want to let everybody know that Teresa and I have been working pretty hard here on, we've been, as you know, we want to get the word out to everybody, try to explain to everybody that they actually have control over if how many medications they're on and what kind of diseases they have. And all this can be reversed with nutrition. And that's what we're trying to do with our book and with our podcast and with our speaking engagements. And now we've actually come up with a newsletter also. It's a free newsletter, but it's going to come out every single Thursday, and it'll just kind of go over questions that people have asked us and kind of do a deep dive into the answers to the questions. But some of them will have recipes on it and quotes and just different things. But anyway, if you'd like to sign up for our newsletter, it comes out every Thursday. It's free, and you can just click in the show notes below and sign up for our newsletter. So today we're talking about thoughts, and most people think that your thoughts are just something that happens. You have no control over them, but that is so far from the truth. I mean, you do have total control over your thoughts. You just don't want to control all of them because we have anywhere from 6 to 60,000 thoughts a day. So you can't actually think about every single one of those. And so our body has a way to make it where you don't have to waste a lot of time thinking about the same things over and over again. So the things you think, it just kind of puts your brain on autopilot. And that's what we want to talk to you today is how do you get your brain off of autopilot if these thoughts are not good for you, and switch it over to a direct thinking where you can make these thoughts be good for you and help you with your whatever goals you want to achieve.
Right. You think about thoughts like brushing your teeth or driving to work. You don't even, I'm sure you've had that experience where you get to work, you're like, I don't even remember getting here. You don't even remember it. So that is an example of, I guess that's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah,
but,
that's a good one. Yeah.
but that's an example of your brain automatically doing these things for you so you don't have to think about it. And so that's where we want to show you that you can actually you have a choice. You can either repeat your thoughts. So we're talking about the negative thoughts right now. I was just giving an example of some
Right.
that are good. So you have a choice. You can either repeat your thoughts or you can deliberately choose new thoughts. And, we'll be, of course, talking about examples with losing weight and, getting healthy and getting off medications.
But one thing, just to kind of drive this home, and I've talked about this before. I think I've talked about it in my book, and I'm pretty sure I probably talked on a podcast before too, and in my talks. But this really did happen when my youngest son was about 6 years old. He's 28 now, so it's a long time ago. When he was about 6 years old, he was out riding his bike and he fell down and he hurt himself. And he came over, or he actually started crying. So I went over to where he was, got down on my knees and was hugging him, say, "Oh, buddy, it's okay." And he sat there and he cried for just a little bit, and then all of a sudden he just stopped. And he looked up at me and said, "Dad," he said, "why is it that when adults get hurt, they don't cry, but when kids get hurt, they do?" I said, "Well, buddy, it's kind of like this. When you first fall down and get hurt, it's just automatic. You just automatically start crying. That's just what you do. But then there comes a time that all of a sudden you realize you're crying. And now you realize you're crying. Now you have a choice. Do you want to continue to cry or do you want to quit crying?" And with adults, we've been hurt so many times. We know that when we get hurt, crying isn't really going to do anything. So we can control that. So we've automatically learned how to switch that off to where we don't cry when we get hurt, depending on how bad it is. But it's the same thing that we're talking about with you guys. There's so many things that you just do automatically. We all do. I'm not you guys. We do too. There's things you do automatically. And what we want to do is make it where now you realize, oh, I have a choice and I'm going to choose to think differently. And this is good. The old thoughts are there. That's like a protective mechanism because you don't want to be thinking the same thoughts all the time. But what happens is when you have these thoughts that you're not really thinking about, your primal body, your primal brain automatically goes to protective mode. So if you don't know what's going to happen and you have to predict what's going to happen, chances are you're on a protective in a negative light. Something bad's going to happen. And that's how our bodies are. We automatically think something bad is going to happen so we can protect ourselves. We're ready to fight or flight. However, that's not always good because a lot of these thoughts that we think are going to be bad really aren't that bad. We make up so many negative thoughts, of predicting the future. We make up so many negative things that never, ever, ever come to fruition. It's really kind of crazy. So that's what we're going to talk about now is get out of that predictive protective mode. And how do you get into a more mode that actually is going to help you with your whatever goals you have.
Right. The deliberate
Yeah, the
choice.
deliberate thinking. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's just like with
Anything really, because like the default mode, I'm sorry to interrupt, but with the default mode, this is something that it's automated. It just goes all the time. You don't really think about it. And these could be things like some negative things that you may be thinking are things like, well, I can't lose weight. I can't get off medications. I can't reverse this type 2 diabetes. Never have, never been able to. Couldn't do it in the past. Why do I think I can do it in the future? This is too hard, and just on and on. I can't lose it because I love carbohydrates too much. I just really love my bread and my pasta and my sugar. And these are all just thoughts. These are thoughts that you're thinking. If you want to change your life, if you want to change your future, you have to think about these thoughts and you have to change it, because it's kind of like, when you do this, and Tony Robbins talked about this, it's like when you have you ride a bike or a motorcycle down a dirt trail, and you ride it once and it doesn't do anything. The road's flat, but you keep riding the same path, and that little path gets more and more deeper ruts. And that's how your brains are. You're used to thinking this way, but the more you think it, instead of having these simple paths in your brain, you start to get these ruts. And once you get these ruts, just like with a bike coming out of a rut in a trail, you have to constantly think, oh, I've got to get out of this trail. But the trail's going to keep wanting to put you back into it. So you have to continuously think. This is a process. This isn't an event. You don't just think a good thing and all of a sudden you switch. It doesn't work that way. You've got to actually think about what's happening. Right. You have to tell your brain what to think.
Right. So just like you may think, oh, today, you're feeling really good, and you're like, oh, I'm going to stop thinking that way. I'm going to start thinking this way. And you do that day. But the next day you get up, and then the old habit comes back in. And it's just like he's saying with that rut. It's like you automatically start thinking those negative thoughts. And so that's what he's saying. It's a process. This is going to take time, and you're going to have to just realize that this is something that will take time. One of the things that we watched was Mel Robbins on a YouTube. She made a video, and she just was talking this exact thing about changing your thoughts. And she gave the example of automatic being right-handed and then telling yourself you're going to be left-handed. And she's like, just like if you go and you're going to write something down, you won't even think about it. You're going to automatically grab that pencil and you're going to start writing down. So what you want to do is like, nope, I want to be left-handed. And so now you consciously, deliberately have to think, I'm going to pick up the pen with my left hand and I'm going to start writing with my left hand. And it's going to be, you're not going to be able to read your writing. It's going to be hard. It's
Very
going to be
clunky.
challenging. And
yeah.
Yes, clunky, and it's not familiar at all. And that's how changing your thoughts are going to be. I thought that explanation was really good.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
So it's like, that's how changing your thoughts will be. Maybe write it down on sticky notes just to remind yourself of these things that you're wanting to do. It's like, I don't want to think this way anymore. And I thought that was a really good explanation of going from right-handed to left-handed.
Right. And in that case, depending on what it is, some thoughts doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter whether you think that thought or not. They're just normal thoughts. Some thoughts really do. And what you have to do is you have to figure out which thoughts are keeping you from getting where you want to be and which thoughts are going to propel you to where you want to be. And those are the ones that you want to do. You want to actually become a deliberate thinker. Think about your thoughts and think, is this good for me or is this not good for me? Because if it's not good for you, that's the ones we want you to change. And again, it goes back to the same things we were talking about earlier. Do you always have the thoughts, well, I'm never going to lose weight. I've tried so many times before and I can't do it. Or, well, I've got type 2 diabetes now, nothing I can do with it. Go get on medications, or, oh, I would love to be healthy, but I just love pasta and bread too much, and sugar and flour and yada, yada. Those are thoughts that you have to decide. If you want to keep thinking that way, that's fine. But realize if you keep thinking the same thoughts, you're going to keep getting the same results. So when you look at these thoughts, you're going to have to decide what actually is going on. Think about the thoughts, write the thought down and think, is this helping me to get better? Or is this keeping me in the same rut that I've been in? And if you want to get better, that's the first thing you do. You have to write it down, then you have to look at it and you have to decide. And also it helps to think, why am I thinking these thoughts? Why am I? Is this something that I was raised in childhood? My parents said something to me, or some friend said something to me, or just looking at all the magazines and television commercials and all this stuff, what is it that makes you have the thoughts you have? And that's going to help you change these thoughts. And then we have to look at what's it cost you? What is thinking this thought? What does that cost you in the past? What is it costing you right now? And what's it costing you if you continue to think that thought? How's that going to affect you in the future? And if you really are, if you have the result of being unhealthy or being on medications or being too obese or whatever you're trying to do here, if you have that thought and that's a negative thought, please do what we're saying and write it down. Think about why it is and think about what's going to happen if you continue to think that way. Because once you do, what you need to do is you need to be able to switch that thought. Just real easy, just like with the left-handed and right-handed. You're writing right-handed. You knew you weren't supposed to. Oh, I can switch my left hand. And now you start making another rut and going in the direction that you want to go. And so that's all you need to do. Figure out how can you turn this negative thought into a positive thought.
Right. And then that goes back to what we always talk about with the CTFAR. And you're probably thinking, why does my thought matter? Or your thought matters for everything, absolutely everything that you do. Because if you have something, say you're overweight, so that would be the C, your circumstance, well, your thought probably is, I can't lose weight. I haven't been able to lose it in the past. I don't know why I can think I can lose it in the future. So that's your thought about being overweight. And then you get a feeling. And so this is where that's really big. That thought gives you a feeling. And we act, we act upon our feelings. We don't only act upon our thoughts, but it's a feeling. And if you feel really good, you'll go for a walk, or you'll prepare your meals, you'll eat healthy from that feeling.
And just real quick, we don't mean you physically feel better. We mean even mentally feel better, because it switches you from being you're a victim. I'm just a victim of my thoughts, to being I'm in control of my thoughts. It makes you empowered. And then when you actually act on those thoughts, now it makes you feel even more confident. It's like, look at that. I changed my thought. I acted on it. I'm doing better. I can change my thoughts again. So when she's talking about that, it's not just you physically feel better, it's you mentally feel better about yourself. And that is huge as far as the rest of your life.
Well, and what you'll do, the actions that you'll do. Because if you feel really bad, it's like, I can't lose any weight. And if you keep that thought, and then if you're just like, I'm not even going to try, I'm just going to overeat, go through the drive-through, you know where I'm going with this. I mean, we all have these days, and you have to intentionally change that thought. So you want the result of losing weight or getting off medications or whatever it is.
Right. And so the first thing you do, like I said, you have to stop thinking your old thoughts. Then you have to program your new ones. So you can say, I don't have to live my life like this. I can create my future. That's really what you want to do. I mean, the best way to predict your future is to create it. Pretty sure that was Abraham Lincoln who said that, but I love it. It is so true. You don't just have to go blindly through life, and whichever way the wind blows you, that's where you end up. That's setting you up for a failure right off the bat. You've got to realize that you can control your future by controlling your thoughts, which controls your feelings and controls your actions and everything we've just talked about. So what you want to do is you want to get deliberate. You've got to get deliberate about switching your thoughts, just from right-handed to left-handed. Okay. From crying to not crying. You have to do this. So first, what you have to be able to do is catch that negative thought. As soon as that negative thought comes up, catch it and think, I know that's a negative thought. I've already written it down. I've looked at it this morning. You may even look at it at night, say, this is a negative thought. This is what I want to change. And when you write that negative thought down, immediately write down, what the positive thought is. So when you see that negative thought, immediately you're teaching your brain every morning, every night. If you really do write this down and look at it, that's another thing that's going to help you get out of that rut, and into a life that you really want to live. And this is life changing. I mean, this can literally change your life if you do this. So first, catch that negative thought, and then as soon as it happens, you want to redirect it to your new thought. And this could be anything. This could be like, if you're used to saying, well, I'm too old to lose weight. I've been obese my whole life. It's too old now. Change that and say, it is never too late to eat healthy. which it is never too late to eat healthy. I don't care where you are. You could be on dialysis and on chemotherapy. Putting toxins in your body is the worst thing you should do, especially at that time. Give your body the nutrients that it needs if you've let your organ failure go too far. If you haven't, if you change your nutrition now, you can totally prevent all that. So those are the things you can. I don't want to be on diabetes. I don't want to have diabetes anymore. I don't want to be on hypertensive medication anymore. I don't want to be on diabetic medication. I don't want to be on cholesterol medicine. Whatever. I don't want to be on anti-anxiety medicine. All these things can be so improved, if not totally eliminated, by changing your food. Before you change your food, you have to change your thoughts about food and about you, and realize that you have total power, total control over all this.
And something to think about, whenever you do change your thought to something, don't blatantly lie to yourself. Like if you're overweight, oh, I'm fit. I'm already fit. I'm fit, because I've heard people say that. Is just think that you're already at the body weight you want to be or whatever. And your brain is going to say, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Look at you. Then it'll start in that whole negative thing again. So that's why when he gave that example of I'm too old to lose weight, well, it's never too late to eat healthy. Well, that's not a lie. And your brain won't think it's a lie.
Right.
So
Right.
That's something to think about too. When you are changing your thoughts, don't make it so that your brain's going to be like, whatever, that is not true, because then you won't do it.
Right. And I know, depending on what you're doing, where you're talking about with goals, a lot of people, when they say goals, like if you write down your goals, you're supposed to write them in the present tense, like it's already happened. I am whatever you want to be, 120 pounds, 130 pounds, whatever. But like she said, if you just write, instead of saying I'm too obese, and you write it in that present tense of I weigh 130 pounds when you weigh 180 or 200, your brain's going to say, I don't believe that. Now, depending on how you are, where you are in the thing, because in some goal setting, that is good to do and that does work. But when we're talking about this is huge, because if you're listening to this podcast, if you're in my books and my talks, anything like that, chances are you are not as healthy as you want to be. And that's why you're listening to these podcasts and everything, or you want to help somebody who's not as healthy as they can be. So you need to realize that changing your thoughts is going to be so empowering, not only to you, but it's going to be empowering to other people as well. So this is not a little thing by any means. And even like the diabetes, there's so many people, and more people getting diabetes every day because of our food system. And now everybody's finally starting to realize that, now that Robert F. Kennedy is making this known to people more, what we've been trying to say all along. Our food is toxic and you have to stay away from it. So if you have diabetes, you by no means have to stay on diabetic medications. Do it till you get your glucose down. But the way to get glucose down is quit eating it. Quit putting glucose in your mouth. That is that easy. So people have been on diabetic medications for 20 years. They change their thoughts, would change your feelings, change your actions. So now they realize, oh my gosh, now I do realize that diabetes is totally reversible. And I do realize that it's totally under my control. I can totally stop my diabetes just by changing what I put in my mouth. That is empowering, because now when you go to eat something that is made out of plants, which is based on glucose, and I'm not saying real fruits, real vegetables. I'm mainly talking about man-made food, but it's true with real fruits and real vegetables also. Anything that comes from a plant is made out of glucose. So once you know that, you're like, wait, I am only continuing to be a diabetic and on medications because I continue to eat this. So if I quit eating this, then I'll get off my diabetic medications and I'll reverse my diabetes. If you think that every time you go to put something in your mouth, every time you got to order something in a restaurant, think, is this going to keep me on my medications, or is this going to get me off my medications? And just that one little thing is just like the right-handed or left-handed. That one little thing said, oh, I am sick of medications, so I'm going to make this where this is something that I love. Oh, I love pasta. Oh, I love bread. Oh, I love whatever, sugar, It'll make you stop saying that and say, oh my gosh, this is what's killing me. This is what's keeping me from having the life that I want, the future that I want. This is toxin. This is Satan. This is Satan coming into my body, and I have total control, and I can leave Satan out of my body. And it's that easy. I mean, you can do whatever you want to. And that's what I do. It's like when you're talking about sugar, I know sugar's bad for me, but I've got to let my children have sugar because I love them so much and it's sweet and they're going to like it. That is crazy. You think that it's toxin to you, but it's not toxin to your children. It's even worse because now they're going to start getting diabetes earlier, like in their teens and 20s, instead of the 50s and 60s, like we used to a long time ago. And very few people then. Now it's everybody. So what you need to think of it is this is a toxin. Sugar and flour are toxins to your body. So how much toxin can you eat before it starts killing your organs? Everybody's different. So are you going to risk it? You're going to say, well, how close? It's like you're standing on the edge in your Grand Canyon and your kids are going over, looking over the edge and, oh, daddy, how close can I come to the edge? It's like, no, 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 no. It's how far can you stay away from the edge? That's danger. Come back here. It's the same thing. You say, how close to the edge can I come with this sugar and this flour and this man-made food before I really start having some kind of organ damage or a problem with my blood glucose, which causes organ damage to everything. It's not about that. It's how far can you stay away from it? And so when you start realizing this is toxin, I don't care what the amount is, I don't want it in my body, that is going to empower you to start realizing, oh, I can stop this. I can think of that as toxin and not something sweet and warm and gooey. I'd say that's killing me. It's killing my family and it's killing my future. That one little thought, if you can really do it, will change your life. I would love to say I totally guarantee it. If you really did change that thought and you really did change your eating, I do guarantee it, because that is what's killing everybody. And it's all because of the thoughts that they have. So this is no little thing. So what you need to do is look at the thoughts you have that you've realized are negative thoughts. They're keeping you away from the future that you want to be. Write that negative and don't write a lot down. I mean, kind of pick it out to the one or two main negative thoughts you tend to have, because you don't want this going crazy. Pick one negative thought, change that, and then you can pick another one later, because people tend to do that. They tend to make these goals and they make all these lofty goals. I've got 10 goals. I'm going to change my life. Well, now you're overwhelmed and none of them end up happening. So don't do that. Pick the one or two main thought processes that you have that are keeping you from doing whatever you want to do, whether it's health, whether it's finding a mate, whether it's starting a new job, a hobby, whatever it is. First, find the thought that's keeping you from doing that. Okay, write it down, look at it, come up with a more empowering thought, and look at those every morning, every night. Read your negative thought, and then immediately go down and read what your overpowering thought is. That way, when that negative thought comes up, you just read it that morning, you're like, oh, there it is. That's that negative thought in my head. Now I'm going to change this. And again, it's a process. This is not an event. It's a process. But if you truly want to change your life, then you truly want to change your negative thoughts. And if you truly want to do your negative thoughts, this is the way to do it. You have to identify what the negative thought is first. You can't do anything with that. But once you identify it, you have to be able to switch immediately over to an empowering thought. So that's why writing these down and reading them is going to be so huge to do. So,
yeah. So, and just like Steve said at the beginning, we want to tell you again about our free newsletter.
Yep.
That you're going to have tips. We're going to be answering questions. You can always email us with your questions so we can answer those in the newsletter, recipes, all kinds of tips for you guys down in the show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, it's down below in the description as well, the link, and we'd love for you to join.
Yeah. And like I say, what we do is we get asked questions all the time from people. And so what we start doing is just recording these questions, write them down. So I'll take one question and then I'll just do a deep dive into the answer. But again, we'll have some other stuff in there, like some testimonials from people who have actually changed their life because they changed what they ate. We'll have recipes. Theresa will do some recipes on there. So just, some fun quotes, different things. But anyway, if you'd like to join our free newsletter, again, it's free. Just click on the show notes down below and we love to get you in there. It'll be one newsletter every Thursday is what we're planning on doing. So for right now, that's all we have. Have a fantastic week. And as always, make simple, healthy choices to live a quality life.